Ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever played a game of chess before, you know it can be pretty intense. Sometimes you might want to take all of your possessions, throw them out a window, or maybe light them all on fire. Other times, you might win a game and it's simply the greatest feeling in the world. All those emotions and everything in between is absolutely understandable and okay. At the World Blitz Championships, which just concluded at the end of 2021, there was a game that featured this very moment, when a chess player tanked out of a seat toward the end of the game in sheer disgust of his own play. That player is none other than international master and probably soon grandmaster to be Pawel Teclaf from Poland, and his opponent was Grandmaster Tigran Petrosian, not the dead one. Rest in peace to him, the former world champion, but the one that's alive and well from Armenia. And in this video, I'm going to take you through this game, and then we're going to watch the clip. It's going to be a great time. Happy New Year if you're watching this on January 1st, 2022. If you're watching this in sometime in the future, I don't know, tell me how the channel's doing and if it still exists. All right, we begin the game with e4, and the reason we have the eval bar here is because it's a blitz game. So in this game, you're going to see a lot of crazy evaluation swings because that's normal for blitz. So Pawel begins the game with e4. We have a modern defense, which this is very normal for Petrosian. He really likes to play g6, a6, and d6 and all this stuff. And Teclaf just plays h4 right away. This is how you know we are playing blitz. White basically is like, okay, I'm going to play h4, h5, and then we're going to figure it out. I'm attacking your g-pawn with my h-pawn. Very standard stuff. Petrosian plays h6. This is a standard antidote to meeting h4. Actually, there's a very good computer line here to play h5, g5, and actually play f4. The computer loves this for white. It thinks that this whole idea to fixate upon this weakness is actually extremely strong. I've struggled myself with this mightily, but in this game we don't get that. We just have bishop to e3. And it's very clear that Teclaf is going to go long castle, but black has developed his bishops. He snipes the center, and that's why Teclaf for a moment has to play f3. And this also prevents black from ever playing knight f6, knight g4, which would in turn win this bishop, but black's position is just unbelievably flexible. I mean, he's barely developed anything, so he plays d6. This is normal for the modern. Black's game plan here is to play knight d7, rook c8, and combine all of that to push the pawn to c5. Because black knows that white wants the long castle, because black is a mind reader, because black is a you know, he practices black magic, and he knows that actually white is planning to castle long. On a serious note, it's just very common that if you do all this, you're probably not going to put your king here. It just doesn't make much sense. And knight to h3, Teclaf not yet going long castle, develops his knight in the center like this, pressuring this way and this way. And as you can see, it's very clear from black's intentions that he's going to play c5, but it's still very good for white to castle long. It's just the name of the game. And now we have c5. Okay, so seemingly both players have achieved everything they've wanted from the opening. Now white has a decision to make. If white pushes in the center like this and locks everything, black marches forward with the c and b pawns and the queen, and black just gets a very powerful attack. So for that reason, white decides to chop right away. Black responds by taking with the knight, and white plays a very useful prophylactic move, king to b1. This is good because now you protect every pawn with your king. So moves like queen a5 are slightly less venomous, although still played. Now, at this point, white should play bishop d4. White should play this move in order to trade off the bishop on g7. This move looks like a fork, but it loses because you take the knight. So it's interesting, you bait the pawn forward, right? You don't just take the knight on c5, you bait this pawn forward, so now this bishop is blocked from the game, and white is just much, much better. White just chops everything down, queen takes this, the pawn also no longer protects this, so white is just winning. That's, you know, bishop d4 played, and black plays knight to f6, and now Teclaf, probably should go and advance on the king side, because otherwise his position doesn't really make any sort of sense. If you're wondering, by the way, when has he fallen out of his chair, it hasn't happened yet. It hasn't. We're still getting through the game. Don't rush me. You fall out of your chair if you're so excited to do it. g4, very common. Now, if black castles short, black is going to castle directly into the line of fire. So black has to be very careful about how they play this position. On the one hand, black probably should castle, but on the other hand, not right now. Black needs to make all the necessary preparations before you can castle borderline successfully. So he goes back to d7. The point is that now his rook pressures this way. The knight guards the middle, and maybe the knight will actually move to the middle itself. And here Teclaf plays h5. So h5 it gives some advantage back to black, but it's about to really give some advantage back to black because we have the move e5. Now, the move e5 on its own just looks like white blundered. I mean, it looks like Teclaf just... And I don't think he did, but he might have. I don't know. Maybe he liked this position. Maybe he was like, I'm going to sacrifice this piece. The engine really doesn't like it, which makes me think that, you know, maybe after e5, he was just going to take on g6. And the point is that now he can also take on f7. Like, maybe he thought this was good. It's not, because you get completely obliterated. So knight takes e4, the bishop comes alive, which is why you should trade it. Yeah, I mean, you can't even attack this king. Everything is protected. So I don't know. I suppose it's blitz. That's what happens, you know? But actually, white is better if after h takes g6, e takes d4, white plays knight takes b5, which is just absurd. The point of knight takes b5 is now the queen is hit, and if queen takes d2, you take in between check, and if the king moves up, you slide out of danger, and then and only then you take back the queen. I just don't know how practical that is, you know? I can't sit here and be like, well, he should have seen that. In a long game, sure, but he sacrifices a piece, and he's simply down a piece for a pawn. Like, black is completely winning. The only good thing about this position, though, for white, sorry, is the king. Is the fact that still, if you castle, I'm gonna win. Like, I'm gonna take on h6, and I'm just gonna checkmate you on the h-file. So, at this point, Petrosian has to play b4, which attacks the knight. He has to continue to move forward here. It's not so simple, but he has to play b4. Instead of attacking the knight, he just bulldozes it. He just plays rook takes knight. Now, that loses the rook for the knight, but it still allows, you know, some decent attacking chances to black. Now, here, Teclaf should play h... This is the only computer line he should take. He should just ignore the rook because it's pinned to the queen and just act like nothing's happening. Just play like g5. I mean, the computer is a savage. It's like, well, you know, it's not checkers. You don't have to take the rook. It can't move anyway. But Teclaf is a normal person, so he takes the knight and is back to losing. Which, rook c3 is actually a very interesting sacrifice, because now what black should do is play knight c5. The reason why knight c5 is super strong is because knight a4 is coming to get this, and knight e4 is coming. So knight takes e4, sacking a knight, and then hitting on c3. Like, just so you understand, if white just ignores and plays like this, after this sequence, even, by the way, this, I mean, yeah, you're just, the king has no guards. All the guards are gone. So you take on c3, you need to follow it up with knight c5, and I mean, the attack rolls over and black crushes white. But Petrosian at this point goes, you know what? I sacked my rook, but now it's time to castle. Absolute lunatic. I mean, the dude, it was cold-blooded, just sacked the rook for nothing, and now white is better again. So basically, remember how a long time ago I told you that black had to make the necessary kind of preparations for this? He did. I mean, in his mind, he was like, I can't get mated anymore, and I'm just going to go checkmate my opponent. But he had to still not castle. He had to still not castle and continue to go for the attack. He didn't, which just allows Teclaf to play a very easy bishop takes pawn. However, the game is still completely nuts. Here, the machine recommends bishop d5. Yeah. The point being that if you take a full bishop, then this, right? And then this. And the same problem. You're just gonna get mated. I mean, bishop d5, you have to sack your queen. So, completely insane game, which is, again, why you have to trade the dark square bishop. Petrosian, though, does this first. He doesn't play bishop d5. He plays knight e4 first. And now white is winning. White is winning because pawn takes, bishop takes. What's the difference? What is the difference between these two variations? Look, what's the difference? There's a pawn on d5. In the game, there is no pawn on d5. The pawn stayed here, so white goes up and the queen cannot come to b4. Oh no! Petrosian messed it up. The queen can't come to b4. The pawn had to block the queen's path, which is why bishop d5, 2 moves ago, sacking a full bishop is the best move. And also threatening queen takes a2. Completely insane, right? Knight takes e4 is a blunder, and after queen d6, white is completely winning, but both players have no time. It's a blitz game. And it's really easy in blitz to sit here and go, oh, well, he should have seen that. You know, but when you have a really weak king, it's terrifying to play blitz because it's like your attack is constantly slow. So now Petrosian plays bishop e5. The queen has to stay covering this, but it can't really because look, if queen to e7 gets played, queen c3. So you have new problems. So the only move here, And Pawel Teclaf, you better believe that Teclaf watches GothamChess. I don't, look, he doesn't have to agree or deny it. I know he does, because here he channels his inner GothamChess videos and says danger levels out loud. Actually, there's footage of him very loudly saying danger levels and Petrosian going, what? Sorry? So now both queens are hanging, and not only that, the queen just can't actually infiltrate. So what does Petrosian do? He has to block the attack on his queen. Now, bishop takes b4 allows queen a4, but queen takes b4, obviously we don't want a queen trade, that's it. White is absolutely in the clear, there's no more attack on the king, so time to chop down over here. Teclaf is completely winning here, right? So we have rook to b8. Rook to b8, the idea being that we want to get to the queen, but instead, in between move, guys, the black king has been stripped completely naked, okay? The phrasing on that could have been slightly better, but, you know, it really, all the pawns are gone. Have you ever seen this? The king is just out in the open. Like, all right, if I die, I die. You know what? I don't even care. Just, if not, then great. So we have bishop c4, we have rook h7. So bishop c4, but watch this. Bishop d5 from Petrosian. Sacking the bishop for free. But now the queen is pinned to the king. So white is going to lose his queen. But he's still completely winning. Queen takes b8. He chooses to take voluntarily and blocks with the bishop. Okay. The only way that white ever loses this game is on the dark squares near his king. If he trades the dark square bishop, he will never lose, right? So he plays rook h6, and now he plays rook h1. He's in the clear. Pawn to g5. At some point, maybe you'll get a bishop c3 and you'll trade that bishop, right? So queen d8, here comes g5. And that's it. You're going to trade this for this, and the rooks are going to bully the king. Opposite colored bishops favor the attacking side. This is actually a great example of that because both sides are pretty close to delivering a final blow, but it's plus 10. Rook h7, king to g6, and now there's a sequence of checks here that leads white to winning this bishop. And then white is going to be up a lot because two rooks and a bishop and a passed pawn against the queen, the game is over, right? So rook h6, but remember, both players have no time. So first of all, this is just a drawn endgame. If black sacks the queen for the two rooks, this is probably just a draw, even with the opposite colored bishops and the two-pawn advantage. However, the players repeat moves, because Petrosian's trying to win the damn game. He's got a queen and a bishop. He might deliver mate any second, but white is winning here. White is winning here by playing the move that he actually plays in the game, which is rook to h5. And then if king g4, he has to play rook g1 check. And black is going to have to move the king to the f-file, something like, you know, here, rook f5. If king e2, you win the queen. And if king e3, you can just take the bishop. And you can block the check, and that's it. I mean, you have to be a little bit precise, but okay, the game is over. But when the king marches up, he does this. And now the difference is that on king to g3, white is still winning, but you're going to struggle to get the bishop. Why are you going to struggle to get the bishop? Well, for example, let's say king f3, rook f5. There is king g2. I'm touching the rook before you can take my bishop, so I'm just harassing your rooks. So you had to play rook g1. White didn't do that. And now after rook f5, I take not just the pawn, but I have check here and check. And that's the difference. The rook had to stay protecting the back rank. Now I bait your king up and I fork you and I win your rook. Crazy. So a total turn of events. Now, if you're still going to argue whether a person can win this game, it's probably white if you coordinate in a way that your rook and bishop just are protected and then you start pushing your c-pawn. Objectively, it's probably completely equal because black is now close enough to harass your king. But you know that we still have some memes to come, right? I mean, this is, right? So, and again, you can't really fault the players. So at this point, both guys are probably pissed off. Probably if one guy's more pissed off at this point, it's Pawel because he was completely winning. Whereas, you know, Petrosian blundered once. And now, you know, bishop c4, what you play bishop c4 because you want to not lose a second rook, makes sense. King d4, bishop d3, and a5. I mean, you just got to play a move. So what does black want? Black wants a4, a3, queen b6, and queen b2. Or king c3, right? So rook g3, just passing a move back, and here Petrosian loses the game on the spot. Like, you know, because he was looking for this. But at this point, Pawel had to remember his other GothamChess video training with c3. Always look for checks, and the game is over. If you take, it's discovered check and you win the queen. If you don't take, if you play something like king d5 or king c5, then I check you. Your king has to go there, and then rook g6. Rook g5, king d, and that's it. White wins. c3 check wins the game on the spot. And not only that, ladies and gentlemen, not only after king b2 did that not happen, it almost happened again. c3 is winning again for white. This happened back-to-back moves. Black repeated, and we have king b2, and now black's like, all right, I'm not gonna play for a draw. King to c3. All right, we have bishop to e4, just, you know, making sure that you don't blunder a rook somehow. Bishop d3, queen c7, a little bit of shuffling, king e3, rook e4 check, and, you know, white kind of has a fortress. White has a fortress. Everything is on a perfect square now. You can just shuffle aimlessly back and forth. But it is a little bit difficult to find a move here. So Pawel plays rook to c4. All right, king e3. Now he's like, damn, I let the king get a little bit closer. All right, now what do I do? All right, because I don't want to lose my fortress here accidentally. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to reward your patience for making it this far in the video, because it's time to show you the highlight of this beautiful game. Please enjoy. Both players thinking here. This is the critical moment. Time ticking. You see less than 10 seconds. Rook c4. King e3 gets close. Check. King slides around. Check. And... So, Pawel resigned after that happened. He resigned. Now let me take you through a play-by-play. So, first things first, what happened? Well, Pawel played rook e4 check, and at this point must have thought that the king was going to go down to d1 if he played rook to e2. Now, if Pawel just plays rook c4, rook e4 for the remainder of the game, he will never lose. As scary as this looks, right? He's fine. He's still in a fortress. There's a little box around his king. He's completely fine. But he played rook e2. I suppose just thinking about king d1, rook e4, and in this position, he's made it. He literally gave the king a VIP pass and a gun and tipped off his own, like, you know, his own king, and now the king got shot. It's crazy. Queen b2, and that's it. The game is just absolutely over. So he yelled a very colorful Polish swear word and fell over. Now, before we continue with just, you know, the final kind of moments here, a couple of things. Number one, someone has to tell this gentleman to not button his suit when he is seated. Pawel, you're a great player. You would destroy me in chess, but I know how to wear my suit. You have to unbutton. Now, he was probably just excited to play the game, and God bless him, he's got a sponsor on the suit and everything. Now, as we go through the footage, which we will mute now as we watch, I love how Petrosian is like upset. He's a little upset, but he's more like, Jesus Christ, what a stupid game. Look at that instant replay. He just shakes his head, takes a sip. With 7 seconds on the clock, by the way. He takes a sip. And now Pawel immediately realizes, like, the second king c3 happens, it looks like he didn't even see it, grabs his head, and this whole next thing that happens is so funny, because look how stone cold Petrosian is. I don't know what the arm was gonna do. I don't know if it was more like a what the hell is happening right in front of my eyes. I don't know. You know, I love how everyone is so chill about it, dude. Like, no one, like, even moves. Even Teclaf, just, like, he doesn't even crack a smile. He's just like, yeah, that's exactly what I intended to do with my last move, was throw him out of his chair. I love how he has 2 seconds on the clock, 1 second, then resigns. He resigns and, you know, kind of grabs his stuff and heads out. But, yeah, an absolutely insane game, and back and forth affair, which is what you usually get when you play the modern. Teclaf is going to be a GM, unquestionably. Petrosian is a very strong GM in his own right. And it turns out that after this game, Teclaf actually, like, got some serious social media traction. The Daily Mail wrote an article about it. He had some interview where he said he was in the elevator and somebody was looking at WhatsApp and then back up on his phone and then, you know, looking like this, and it was like, oh my God, this is the guy. But anyway, amazing clip. Many of us have felt this way when we played chess, but very rarely is it caught on footage, and very rarely is it, you know, between two very strong players at such a prestigious event. So I figured I would share the game with you. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if there's any other things like this out there, crazy stuff over the board live and recorded, do let me know. Happy New Year once again, and I will see you in my next video. Get out of here.